I guess John could do it, but I need it.
Yes. Hello, 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 and welcome to Propel. Propel, we are live. We got my very special guest with me today, who I'm going to be introducing in just a few moments. But I'm excited about Propel today. So I am Stephanie Morrow, founder at Transformation Living Systems, which is a personal development brand for female leaders, really centered around the work of building women from the inside out. And so, part of what we do is provide really services and opportunities for women, like-minded women to really come together, to exchange, to glean from each other, to really serve as a resource for those women, on their journey to what's next. And so, Propel is, really part of that work. We've been in this virtual space for several months now, and so having to live in this place, to work in this place, to play in this place, like everything is here. And so I really kind of decided to put Propel there. Um, and we'll probably remain in this space, even maybe once the pandemic kind of, lifts, whatever, whenever, that might be. This does give us an opportunity to connect with women, just really all over. And so while we were meeting up quarterly and things of that sort, we went to this virtual space, but I like it here. I like it here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So, guys, when we think about Propel, a little bit about this, conversation, this leading edge conversation, I really felt like the comfort zone is the place where most people hang out. And so when we move out of the comfort zone and into the place of purpose and destiny, and the place of the next level, that really is the leading edge. And so I think the leading edge is that place where you really begin to step out and you start to see the manifestation, really, and the demonstration of all of these promises that God has for your life, all these things that you aspire to do, that you've been inspired and called to do. And so we want to be out on the leading edge. And so once we get there, who are the people out there on the leading edge? They are these limitless leaders, right?
Mhm.
For me, I believe leadership is about influence. It's not about title. It's not about roles. So if you have the opportunity to influence, then you are a leader. So many times people don't see themselves as leaders, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in our conversation later today. But I believe that self leadership is so important. And so when we talk about limitless leaders, it's not leaders that have not faced challenges or had barriers or blocks. They've just decided to move past them. They've found ways and strategies, and they've made a commitment to remove those barriers and to remove those limits and to make their way out to the leading edge anyway. So that is the conversation around, these limitless leaders that I'll be featuring here on Propel. And so today I have a very, very special guest that I'm going to introduce, and then we're going to dive right into our conversation today. So, Kim A. Smith is a sought out speaker. She's an author, she's an executive coach, and a Fortune 500 corporate leader. She has spent decades in top hospital systems, experience including leadership development, hospital outpatient operations, business development, and service excellence. She's a CAP Institute certified coach, and through her work at Positivity Academy, which is her personal brand, she helps executives and business owners accelerate their personal and business growth through customized workshops, e-learning, and signature speeches. So welcome to Propel, Kim Smith.
Thank you. Oh, it's great to be with you. Excited to be a part of the conversation.
Yes, yes. So, Kim, when you hear this term limitless leader, to be a limitless leader, what comes to mind? What is it? What do you think about? What comes up for you?
The first thing that came to mind when you said it was there is no glass ceiling. We
Mhm.
talk a lot about this glass ceiling and having to shatter the glass ceiling in corporate, having to get out of the box. It means to live outside of the box. It's to not even acknowledge that there is a ceiling, but to be so focused on your growth that you don't allow the barriers that most people would be distracted by to distract you,
Mm.
because there will be barriers, but you are so focused on that North Star where you're going that those don't slow you down or make you question what's inside of you and what you're called to do. So that's limitless.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you've just really kind of described, I'm sure, your own leadership paradigms and your own leadership experiences.
Yeah.
So, talk about how that kind of drive and focus has really impacted you, really both personally and professionally. I often say that we cannot be professionally, who we are not personally. And so,
Right.
in your business, in your profession, as well as in building the Positivity Academy brand, how has that kind of focus been a key part of that?
Right. It's so true. I believe that, especially early on as a young leader, as a young manager, before I even built the brand, I felt like I was, how can I say, I was considered high potential.
Mm.
So I had this cleared path because mentors and, my mother, my grandmother, I had all these people helping to clear the path before me. So it felt like I was moving forward a little easier. And I don't want to say it as if life is easy, because it's not, but it wasn't a struggle to get into school. It wasn't a struggle to do certain things,
Yeah.
because I didn't know at the time that people were clearing the way. But I got to this point where I had to start clearing my own way. And then I had to learn what is on the inside of me, that needs to go, that needs to be improved. So I had to deal with pride.
Hmm.
I had to deal with some shame of failure. I had to deal with understanding that failure is a part of the process. I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I had to really learn how to kind of gird myself up and start clearing my own way with support. But I was at the plow at a certain point. And as I began to do that, I recognized the importance of recognizing some things just come with the journey,
Hmm.
right? So I think even in your book, the book, your first book that I bought, you talk about fear.
Hmm.
Like take fear with you.
Yeah.
You talk about fear. So those kind of things. I'm sure Oprah has fear. I'm
Yeah.
sure Tyler Perry has fear. They don't focus on the fear. They
Yeah.
recognize that's a part of the journey. And I had to learn that. And as I learned that, I recognized, let me fail forward and fail quickly. Let me ask for help early.
Hmm.
Let me not be in pride, because pride costs money. So
Yeah.
I had to learn those things. And that has driven me personally with my marriage, raising kids, 3 kids, with my career, with the business brand, with my volunteer world. We wear a lot of hats, but we don't come out of the womb knowing how to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And if we think that, oh, this barrier means we should stop, then you will stop.
Yeah.
But then not only will that be, the problem is it's a mindset, right? You
Mhm.
talk a lot about mindset, because if you stop in your career, what prevents you from stopping in your home, in those relationships in your home? What prevents you from stopping in that community-based venture you're working on? Because if you think barriers mean stop, then you'll stop in multiple areas of your life.
Yeah.
So you have to know, some things come along, let me grow forward, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of just agreeing to live by this growth mindset. I believe, as you were talking and I was processing, I believe a lot of the fear comes because so many of us live with this fixed mindset, that point A is, it's going to be a straight line from A to B. And
Yes.
that's not the case. And so when I think about those that are out there on that leading edge, those of us that like to hang out on the leading edge, you realize that, like you said, that fear, it never really leaves you. You
Mhm.
just mentioned Oprah. I remember listening to her talk about when she started the OWN network. So here
Yes.
you are, Oprah Winfrey, billionaire, decades of experience in this, in this industry. And, she talked about the fear of launching out when she, began the OWN network, because she didn't, really know if she had it, or, that kind of thing.
Right.
So you would imagine that, you ascend to a certain level where you become fully confident. But I think it's almost like a recursive cycle that
Mhm.
you accomplish, you attain, And then there's a next, because there's always a next, because our nature as human being is growth and expansion. So even when you get wherever there might be, you get there and you realize that, okay, now let's push a little further. And so
Right.
with each push, I think there comes a different level of, whoa, am I really qualified? Can I do
Right.
that? Are you sure? Me?
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't think it ever fully, leaves us. And so being able to, like I talked about in the book, bring fear with you, just keep moving. The goal is that you stay in motion, and, hey, fear, come. Now you can't stay, you're not gonna be camping out and spending the night and all of that. But if you've got to start on the journey with me, just know at some point in time you're gonna be dropped off.
That's it.
So talk a little bit about, because I know, you know, you are in a space professionally that is in alignment with your own personal brand that you're building as well. But talk a little bit about what that is, and then why is it so important that women really find something that resonates with them, that they can build and really foster and cultivate, that ultimately becomes their legacy. Why is that? What is that for you? And then why is that so important?
Absolutely. And the first thing that I will say is if you are looking to expand and grow a brand outside of a corporate space, that's wonderful. But don't put yourself from out of one box into another one.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, I did that. I tried to take all that I knew and just take that box, like Wally. If you all have watched Wally, I've got young kids, so we watched it, and put it inside of another box in self containment. So what I mean by that is I had to go through the process of understanding, how do I know I want to do more, I want to have a great impact, but how do I package this? What is this called? What am I called? What's my title? Which is kind of a corporate mindset of trying to find this pathway, when you're growing in influence and you're creating an impact, there you may have to create a path, right? So for me, I recognize a few things about myself. I knew that I was passionate about speaking and developing people. And that started very young. I actually started speaking in the 5th grade. I don't know if you know this story, Stephanie. I started speaking because I wouldn't speak. I
Right.
almost was held back in the 5th grade because I was not communicating. And my teacher told my mother, if you don't enroll her in a program with, mentors, that we're thinking about just holding her back 1 year because until she comes out of her show. I don't even know if that's allowed these days, but that
Wow.
was the reason. And my mom said, okay, I'm going to enroll her in the program, but oh, I know what's in her. I'm going to make her speak. So she started making me memorize speeches, and I was a part of oratorical contests, and I started winning. And I've been speaking since the 5th grade, um, competitively. And then I started speaking professionally. So that has always been in me. So I knew that was important. I knew I had this story about the loss of a daughter, from 8 years ago, and how that impacted me in terms of my experience in healthcare. I spent, a long time in healthcare. I love growing, developing leaders. What does all that mean? How do you package all that and be fully in alignment?
Mm-hmm.
And alignment is important because for a number of years, I felt fragmented. I could only show up as with this piece of me. So I
Mm-hmm.
can be corporate Kim here. I can be Christian Kim here. I can be executive coach Kim here. And I felt like I was so fragmented and I was not fulfilled. So I started really, honestly, going deeper on, okay, what is the specific outcome? What is the imprint I want to leave on this earth? And I started really praying more about what that looked like. What's my personal mission? And while I have had clarity, the very specific words that I received 2 years ago was teach people how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I had already written the value lens. That's why I was literally in my spirit, I heard write people first, teach people how to treat my people, so that has become my filter.
I'm
So
writing it down. I love
oh, good.
it.
And that's me. That's my mission. That's my purpose slash mission. So
Mm,
that is now my filter. So when I have opportunities to connect, I evaluate, is this me teaching people how to value others,
yes.
how to put them first? And I literally use that as a filter for any opportunity. So of course, um, I'm on the board for the Preeclampsia Foundation, which is so in alignment with my personal story of loss linked to a hypertensive disorder of pregnancy, and even my work on there. I check in. Is this aligning with my mission? And, and I make sure that it is. I look at other opportunities within my church. I oversee the Expecting Miracles ministry with women in my church. I have for about 5 years, and that aligns with the mission. Within the healthcare space, I look at opportunities, and we'll talk about that later, stepping into something new. And I've checked, does this align with my core purpose, my mission, that I'm
Yeah.
teaching people how to value others? And it does. It not only does, but because I've been exercising this, I will be able to, in this role, show up as all of me for
Hmm.
the first time. And that is, I can't tell you, I mean, I'm getting chills. I can't tell you how incredibly empowering that is, to know that every bit of me I get to bring to the table to serve within my mission. So really be clear. So what I would advise people to do is be clear on, what is your personal mission? What should you be doing each day? Because that will activate the no factor. I think we need a yes factor and a no factor. It's
Yes.
easier to say no to things, not because you're lazy or you don't want to support or those things, but it has to be in alignment. Or I could spend my time with my kids, with my husband, doing working, doing something else. So be
Yeah.
clear on what that mission is.
I like that. I think that personal mission and that sense of personal vision and mission,
Yeah.
is so important because you're right. It does drive, a lot of the decision making. I think sometimes, who you date, where you work, where you live, like everything is kind of governed by that. And so
Yes.
that's not very clear. Like you talked about being fragmented before and feeling, just conflicted and, inauthentic in some spaces,
Right.
like having that clarity across the board. And I was sitting here reflecting as you were talking, and for me that is to teach. Like I'm always teaching, and I'm all I find that whatever space I'm in, I'm always teaching and really charging others to think, to think differently, to think at a higher level, to consider new ways or new opportunities for their thinking. And so as I'm sitting here drawing this diagram, I'm like, that happens over there, that happens here, it happens.
Yeah.
So any arena that I enter or any space that I find myself in, I find myself teaching. And it's so funny because my husband will be talking about something. He'll say, look, I don't want to be, I'm not one of your little clients or whatever. I don't want to be coached. I don't, I don't,
Look at him.
yeah, because I'm always asking questions. Like I believe, it's about asking the right questions. It's not about having all the answers. It's about asking questions. So I'll be asking
Yes.
questions. He says, "Look, I'm not trying to be coached today. I need an answer to this question."
Yes.
What happens is it never. You don't turn. It's because it's who you are. You don't have to turn the switch on and off.
Right.
So you're always in that mode. And so, it's just funny here, in a domestic space. It's like, look, I'm not up for it. I need to know, yada, yada, yada. So,
I love it.
yeah,
I,
yeah. But that sense of personal mission and vision is
Mhm.
so key. And I just think about some of the women that I encounter and some of the conversations and exchanges that I have. And I'll have people say, what's my purpose? And what they're really saying is, they've not really tapped into this mission, this vision that you're talking about, their own personal mission and vision, uh,
Right.
letting that be the net that they cast in the different waters as they move through life. And so helping women to really uncover that and to
Right.
retrieve that, because I do believe we all come here with it and life happens, and over time we lose it. And so it's,
Yeah.
almost like it becomes unrecognizable. So
Yeah.
a
And you
lot
have to be careful. I'm so sorry to cut you
go,
off. I just want to
go.
say, you have to be careful. The world is so noisy.
Yes.
And if you don't know your purpose, someone else will assign you one that they
Yeah.
think is your purpose.
Yes.
And you'll find yourself just going in all kinds of ways, not getting anywhere closer
Yeah.
to what you should be doing. And you feel like you're behind. But be very conscious of recognizing when it's too noisy, too many distractions out, especially in social media world,
Hmm.
and you are finding yourself wanting to follow or mimic someone just to find something that identifies with yourself, you need to take a step back.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to take a step back and clear your head, clear the noise so you can see you and
Yeah.
really think about what are you supposed to leave as an imprint on this earth.
Mhm. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up, Kim, because I think it's more relevant now probably than
Yes.
it has been in times past. And you're right, it is extremely noisy, in the world with distractions and
Yeah.
you just think about all of the political unrest and the racial unrest and the economy and now we got the pandemic. Like there are just so many distractions and things around you that could really pull you away. And so you're right, being able to know who you are, to be able to stand clearly in who you are, even in the midst of those distractions, is so important because one of my friends talks about Dr. Kimberly Ellison. I love her. She talks about the spirit of copy and paste. You know,
Oh,
people people copy and paste your work, and just because it looks
yes.
good, or it's like trying on a pair. Oh, those are nice shoes. I think I walk, put those shoes on them, but they weren't really built for you. And
Yeah.
so, for me, I think that our authentic space is our most powerful space. I think we are the most
Wow.
impactful and the most powerful when we are authentically, standing in the space that's been created for us. And here's the other thing, for those of you watching, sometimes that space isn't a greatly populated area. You know what I mean? Um, so sometimes you are the prototype, and sometimes you have to become that which you are desiring to see or to be. And so sometimes you haven't really seen what it is that you think you've been called to do really done in that way. And so that's a drawback. And
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? Have you talk a little bit about that?
And I'm just one thing. I wrote down your authentic space is your most powerful space. You need to put that everywhere. I need a t-shirt, a pen, a tumbler. That
I'm
is
like,
power.
we call my people.
Call your people. Call your people. I need a hat. So yes. Oh my goodness. And one of the interesting things is that you have to trust and know your value.
Mhm.
You have the trust that you have value first. You have the trust there's something about you that is so unique to you, like your fingerprint. And if we're honest with ourselves, many people struggle with that. That's
Mhm.
the first thing. And then once you know that, you have to discover your value. What do you bring to the table consistently, regardless of where you are, that people need and they may never tell you?
Yeah.
They may not even be able to put their fingerprint on it. But as you consistently show up authentically, like you said, and because and that builds confidence. Knowing who you are builds confidence, and that attracts people. People love confident individuals.
Yes.
People, they don't have to pump up themselves, but show up with their shoulders up, saying, "I can get the job done. This is how I've done it before," and they can speak that language. You begin attracting, and I believe you start being molded for that place that I believe you will have some of your greatest impact. That
Mhm.
is, and so as you're doing this, you're grooming yourself for
Mhm.
this huge leap, where you may see yourself on the top of a hill, but there is a mountaintop that has your name on it, and you're thinking, where is the bridge? How do I get from point A to point W?
Yeah.
Have I been ready? But you've been preparing. You've been preparing because you've been showing up consistently, adding value, and you knew how to do it. So there's a few assessments that are free that I would even recommend, that I recommend to people. One is fascinator.com. Sally Hawkes she says, if you don't know your value, how can you expect anyone else to? you have to show up with confidence. And this assessment tool, and there you can pay for more detailed versions like anything, but there's a free one, I believe, still that will tell you what is your almost competitive advantage when you show up.
Okay.
So one of mine is mystique. There's a curiosity that people is triggered in people when I show up in the room. And I
Hmm.
never knew that. And it kind of leads people to have a very strong interest in what I have to say. And it's
Mm.
not just me talking about me. This is from the assessment results.
Yeah.
So she tells you how to use that to your advantage, to grow and to be challenged and to engage and connect. And I mean, I'm telling you, if you can go to it just maybe takes 20 minutes, fascinator.com. Sally Hogshead, incredible researcher, and she will give you insight on your makeup, your wiring, and how you show up powerfully. And then there's
Wow.
one other that I use with my coaching clients, the VIA Character Strengths Assessment. And this is through the University of Pennsylvania, and it's also free. I think it's viacharacters.org, something like that, but VIA. And this assessment, it gives you insight on your natural
Mm.
characteristics, excuse me. So one of my top characteristics is spirituality. So being clear on my purpose and being in alignment is my is a strength of mine. So I can use that. It'll teach you how to use that to your advantage to show up more powerfully in corporate settings, with your business, with your clients, with your children.
Mhm.
So as I began really learning more about me and I started showing up more powerfully and getting results and doing it so like me, the positions, the opportunities that were customized and almost pre-designed just for me, for my personality, my skills, my strengths, began being um, so much more obvious. So,
Mm.
and that goes into the even we can talk about that later with the current role. But as opportunities open up, I said, "Oh, that's mine. That's me all over it." You just see it because you're you. You've been you for years, right? And
Wow.
as you show up powerfully because you know yourself, oh my goodness, people will flock to you. But then
Yeah.
you have your mission, so you can filter and have your no activator of
Yeah.
no, that's not it. Yes, but that's it. You know.
So Kim, talk a little bit about your new role. I love, where you talk about, knowing your value and being very clear on what it is that you bring and how that, kind of helps to navigate the way as you move. So talk a little bit about, how that has moved you into this new role, into this new space, how your current value system and your commitment to growing that value system has led you on this role into your new space.
Right. So one of my I'm big on knowing what your leadership brand is, especially if you're whether you're in corporate or business, a business owner, you need to know what your leadership brand is. And part of one of the characteristics of my leadership brand, and I started using this phrase recently, is the gap closer.
Mm.
So I go in and I look at finding ways to close gaps, to solve problems, to save money. And I mean, so there are certain things that every role I've had, I've always done that. And I'm not thinking about it, it's just how I show up.
Mhm.
So with this, but I've also had a desire to bridge my strengths as a coach, my strengths as a speaker, and as well as a healthcare executive into one role because I still work in healthcare. I love healthcare, and I still have a lot of purpose in that space right now.
Mhm.
And I recognize that in which is my current role because I'm transitioning now. I recognize that I couldn't give any more of me. I no longer had permission to
Mhm.
give what I knew they needed. I
Yeah.
could no longer close the gaps because I didn't live in a certain city. But so you can't be physically here. Can you move, relocate? They had a lot of turnover, a lot of changes of new people coming in. And I could no longer help them the way that I knew I needed to. And also that meant I wasn't growing.
Mhm.
And that's important to me. I have to be growing or it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So I knew that and I literally cried on a few occasions the past 6 months, knowing that it's time to go. I can't stay here, but what
Yeah.
does that mean? Do
Yeah.
I leap in full-time business? Do I do something different? But I knew that it was time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that looked like. And then an opportunity just popped in front of my face. I threw my name in a hat. And within maybe a week and a half, I mean, it was a speedily move. This opportunity, not only, and it's an executive level role that's within my city for hospital system, which I'm so excited about, is the first hospital system that I was exposed to in graduate school. So I had an internship there. So I have an opportunity to show up as Christian Kim, as the executive coach, because that's literally in the job description. We need you to coach as the executive coach, as the business mind, as the person with the for-profit Fortune 500 experience that they don't have. And all those pieces are missing. And it's
Mm.
going to be hard. And I said, but I'm the gap closer. And I
Yeah.
know what I'm capable of. And I
Yeah.
said, this is me all over it.
Yeah.
And they are just wonderful people. It's close. It's maybe 20, 25 minutes from the house, not getting on the airplanes all the time,
Yes.
and I said, wow, I didn't know this even existed.
Yes.
I didn't even know this was a possibility. But as
Oh.
I became curious about, there's something more, I feel like it was drawn to me to see it
Mhm.
divinely. I was supposed to see that opportunity. It was supposed to happen at this time, because if it happened even 6 months ago, I would have ignored it with all that's happening with the pandemic.
And let's unpack this. This
I
is
know it's
good.
so good. I can talk forever.
No, no, no. This is so good in so many ways because, basically what you've said is instead you found yourself at an impasse professionally. Uh,
Yes.
and basically, rather than looking for a job, because that's what you do when it's just how we're wired. I need to look for a job. What you focused on was attracting your next assignment.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a different type of thinking. I
Yes.
know that I've got this value. I know that I've got this skill set that I want to be able to continue to serve, with and through and build and grow. So I'm more focused on attracting the next assignment than just looking for another job. Like that's just a different level of thinking. And I love when you talked about sensing when it was time for that move to happen. There's a picture of a giraffe in this looks like a little apartment, and the giraffe has been down like he can't even hold his head up because the space is so small. And as you were talking, that image came to my mind, like sensing that it is time to make the transition. And so often we ignore that. We ignore it personally. We ignore it professionally. Like I believe there is something that happens, and you know when it's time to make that move. It doesn't mean that you go turn in a resignation or whatever that particular day, but I
Right.
think it's where the shift mentally starts to happen, where the detachment starts to happen. And I believe that it's at that moment that it's almost like being in two places at one time. That's also the moment that you really begin to attract what's next. I
Mhm.
remember when I left the principalship in the summer of 2013. I had no real idea about where, or I mean, I had another position that I moved into that ended up serving really as a bridge. But I remember not being totally sure about what was next, but being sure about that the time in that seat and in that role had expired. And that's
Yes.
a very scary place to be because people are asking questions. Well, where are you going? Well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to kind of let life unravel and unfold, and so
Right, right,
you're kind of, you can sound kind of scary to people because you don't have things, that's our human nature to want
right.
to want everything figured out. And it kind of just reminded me of me, making that leap several years ago. And, it's been a total zigzag, but with every up, every low, it's just an ebb and flow over time.
Right, right.
But every assignment has led to has moved the path along and has led to who I am and who I'm becoming. And so, gosh, that's key. But we
it's
got to be able to do that.
you have to be open,
Hmm.
because if I wasn't open, because I was committed and loyal and focused, and I was fine, and I realized, oh, I became okay with not growing anymore.
Yeah.
So I didn't like how I was putting myself into a box,
Wow.
and becoming someone that I wasn't, and it wasn't fulfilling
Hmm.
anymore. And I can serve and help, and it's like I can do it with my eyes closed at this point, and it's someone's dream job.
Hmm.
That's the thing. But it's not mine. It was never mine, because I knew that it wasn't going to be forever. But when I got to that place where I realized, wow, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't do something wrong to me. It wasn't, I could still stay, but I would stay small. So the image I kept seeing in my head, and I've seen this for like 2 or 3 years, is me sitting in this classroom chair, a kindergarten seat, and I was growing, and the seat was so tight, and I knew it was uncomfortable, and everyone around me was like, "Why are you in that seat? Why are you in that seat? You need to get in a bigger seat, lady."
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we try to, like, those parent teacher conferences early in the day, when you try to squeeze into that small, tiny seat and you
Yes.
don't quite fit. At least I don't.
Yeah.
Uh, I felt like I was just in this tiny seat, and I looked like I didn't belong in that seat, but nobody was ever going to say anything, because they still needed me in the seat.
Yeah.
But it was obvious that I had outgrown the seat for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And
And I think it's so key to be able to, like I said, there was so much, Les Brown says you don't see the picture when you're in the front. I mean, you can't see yourself in the picture until you step out of it, right? He talks about the picture in the frame. And so you don't really know it in that space or in that moment. And so it's usually once you come out of that experience and look back that you see, like,
right.
that seat was too little. And just taking, making the decision to make the leap is so important. I remember saying to myself, I've got to get out of this seat, because this seat has somebody's name on it, right?
Yes, it's someone else's dream they're praying for.
I got to
Can
get
you
out.
imagine that your fear is holding up somebody else's dream?
And believe it or not, that thinking really kind of propelled me and pushed me. And I thought, I've got to move out of this seat, because I'm holding up like someone else is supposed to be here right now. And they can't be here while I'm here. And so while I'm not, you talk about that chair that you're in too little, and you
Yeah.
didn't have the bigger desk right there for you to just naturally walk to. I'm sure it was a journey to the bigger space,
Yes.
to the bigger desk. So that my next seat wasn't quite ready. So
Mm,
I still had to move out of that space so that the next person could come, because I was in the way. And that thinking really helped me, because I felt bad about holding up somebody else's work. I'm like, I gotta
right.
get out of the way. So this is not just about me. This is about me. You talk about clearing that path, about getting out of the way for the next person, for them to be able to get into alignment and into their assignment. I've got to move. So
Wow. That's
it
so good.
yeah, and it happens. And so, just being willing to watch the journey just naturally unfold in every assignment. I mean, you talk about ordered steps. Everything has just worked. Every assignment has been the training ground for what's next, and
Yes.
that's just been the way it is. And so I'm grateful. So you talk about that. I'm in that all day long. Like,
Yeah.
I know what that feels like. And so here's what we're saying, listeners. Don't take that we're telling you to move somewhere prematurely.
Right.
Because a lot
Right.
of times we'll experience, discord or harmony, and we want to, the natural instinct is, I'm out of here. I'm going to go start my own business, or I'm going to leave and I'm out of here. That's not what we're saying. It's really about this self acknowledgement and self awareness, and knowing who and when and where, and like it's a process to that. So I don't preach this gospel of everyone quit your job and go start your business. Like, that's a transition.
Right.
And it's a lot of that. You talked earlier about the space being so noisy and so crowded. There's a
Mm.
lot of that going around. Oh, just quit your job and start your own. Quit your job and start your own. And you can, but it's a
Mm. Yeah. And there's some other ways too I'm learning too, because my boys, they have an entrepreneurial spirit. They're literally 6 and 5. My
Oh,
6-year-old wants his own YouTube channel. He wants to show kids how to, yeah, he's into STEM, math. So he's just finished robotics class this morning, and he's even my neighbor who actually used to work for Pixar, it says, I'll create his intro video for his YouTube channel. So this is really, he really wants this to happen.
yeah.
Um, and he wants to sell Play-Doh for $20 a pop. I mean, I said, who's buying that? But anyways, they're excited about the possibilities of growth and learning. Of course, it will cultivate that. But when I think about why they have that spirit of growth, it's because we model that, right? I'm big on leadership in action. Leadership starts at home.
Yes.
So as you show up, consistently pushing yourself, and if you don't want to do it for yourself, if you have children, do it for your children.
Yeah.
Even if you're not, because I wasn't modeling that on purpose. I just realized they're picking that up from their mom. They said, "Oh, I can do that. I can be on TV. I can," and they just, it's not even a question. So I'm excited about the next generation of leaders that we're raising,
Yeah.
right? Who are not gonna have the same, concerns or barriers mentally,
Yeah.
because they just grew up thinking that is a possibility. Let me just go for it and do it early. So I
Yeah.
just want to throw that in there.
And I often say that children are a product, as an educator and a parent, I'm learning that children are more so a product of expectation than environment.
Wow.
We say, oh, children are product of their environment to a degree, but I've seen expectation produce more than environment. And so
Yes.
we are really a product of expectation. And so when we can have high expectations, what does it look like? It looks a lot of different ways. It can mean a lot of different things, but having those high expectations, and that you're talking about is just, it's the expectation. It's what they've seen, it's what they've known, it's what they've been, accustomed to. And so it won't be, I said that to say it won't be a huge leap for your boys, because they will have been surrounded by that, and that will have been the model, that would have been the legacy that was lived out around them very naturally. Which kind of
Yeah.
leads to my next question, about what are some of the causes or things that are just like most prevalent in your thinking right now, that are really just kind of at the forefront of all that you do?
Yeah. So one thing that I often preach is that if you are of influence and you're increasing in influence, you should have an impact somewhere beyond the walls of your organization,
Mhm.
your home. It all starts at home, it starts inward and it goes out and it should spread. I believe it should spread. So for me, I have been an advocate in the maternal health space for years. I mean, I'm talking 8 years now in this space. And
Mhm.
I've always had a concern, but also I will say a concern, an interest, and a commitment. That's a better phrase, a better word, a commitment to improving Black maternal health outcomes. It's
Mhm.
more prevalent in the news, right? We've heard the stories of poor outcomes for Black women. We're 3 to 4 more times likely to die due to a pregnancy related issue. And one of the top 5 reasons is actually hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. And that's part of my story. I'm a near miss. I literally could have died in my bed if my
Wow.
husband didn't get me to the hospital on time and the doctors acted and did what they're supposed to do. So many people don't have that story. There's so many single dads that don't have their wife. There's so many families that are mourning the loss of children and women, um, because of something that was preventable. Most of these deaths are preventable, actually. I would say about 50-55% is what the data says. So delving into this, I recognize this has to be a part of me. Whatever I do, I'm connected and committed to improving and amplifying my voice around Black maternal health. So
Mhm.
I've been a part of the Preeclampsia Foundation as a volunteer. We started 8 years ago, volunteering and supporting them. And I started on the board. This is actually my 3rd year. I'm finishing up my first term on the board, and started in 2017 as a board member. In January, I became a board chair. I believe I'm the first Black female board chair
Oh, wow.
for the foundation, 20-year history. And we're doing a lot of work. So this year we've really been working hard. We've launched a racial disparities task force
Mm.
with leaders from all over the country. I mean, we have Yale, Morehouse. Oh my gosh, the nurses partnership, nurses family partnership group. I mean, we have doulas at the table, melanated moms. I mean, there's so many different organizations, a
Oh,
very
wow.
diverse group that we've been meeting since January, and we're committed to building a plan that the foundation can come together and agree. Yes, this is our commitment to improve Black maternal health, not general based on what we do anyway for everybody, but very specifically improving outcomes for our hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, family, volunteer family, and the people we're serving.
Yeah.
So we are close to getting the draft recommendations ready. So that'll happen next month. We've already prepped the board at our virtual board retreat a few weeks ago that this is what's coming. We brought in one of our physicians who's from a professor at Yale as well. We talked about the data, talked about things like weathering, the weathering theory, with the stress level of Black women and
Yeah.
environmental factors and all the things that impact outcomes. And to have them so I wouldn't say mesmerized, but in awe of the depth of this issue, that you
Yeah.
can't just send pamphlets out, right? And think
Yes.
you've checked the box, you've solved your problem, but we're taking steps to go deep. And I'm grateful to co-chair the task force. Sometimes when you open your mouth, you got to be willing to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty. But you
Right.
know what? But when you're in alignment, you're not overstretched.
Yes.
And we say no to things, you can show up more powerfully for the things that you're called to have a
Amen.
real impact in. So we've done so much. This is a part of our 5-year strategic plan now, and also doing work locally because the foundation is national, space in Florida, but I serve with the South Carolina Birth Outcomes Initiative on the Vision team, and I'm able to see what's happening in the state of South Carolina, which is where I live, and what's their focus area to improve outcomes. And this is expanding my mind because it's not just about preeclampsia, but it's about maternal health for all. I mean, what
Hmm.
about women in prison
Yes.
and the poor care they're receiving in the prisons? And it's a struggle. And what about high risk women in prison? You don't think about those things if it's not something on your radar.
Yeah.
But this is exposing me to what about women in rural areas that during COVID, yes, telehealth is great, but if they don't have the internet, a strong signal out there, they're
Yeah.
not going to schedule the appointment. So you have it's opening up our vulnerabilities. And
Hmm.
this team is working to address them and educate providers across the state. So I'm there representing the foundation, but also the patient in the state, which is it's work, right?
Yeah.
But many people say work and impact looks like hard work. I mean, success looks like hard work, right?
Yeah.
But I'm able to do it because I feel like I'm in alignment.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just to hear you, the word that was resonating with me as you were talking about this work was ministry. Like ultimately, this is a
Yes.
form of ministry. And
Yeah.
sometimes we feel like ministry is what happens, for a couple of hours on a Sunday morning when we get together with other people that look like us and behave like us and think what we think.
Yeah.
But, the opportunity to improve the quality of life for people anywhere, in my
Yeah.
book, is a definition and a type of ministry.
Absolutely. You know what God told me? Because I was praying about that. I said, how does this fit? Because I also lead our I guess a in-service ministry. I'm not a minister, but I lead a group of women, and it's really just a support group within our church for pregnancy-related challenges.
Mhm.
And I've been leading it for like 5 years, but I participated when it started after our loss. So it really helped me, and I wanted to give back, and it's been great. But I've been trying to figure out, okay, what is this? Is this like another thing? Like, what does this mean? I'm doing all this stuff. And he finally said, your collar looks different. He said, your collar looks different. I need you in the marketplace. I
Yes.
need you to show up because when we show up, and this is, for me, when you show up with hope and a positive energy and a commitment to serve,
Mhm.
that that ministers to people
Yes, it does.
who, if they don't experience that, that may be the only hope they receive coming to your office. You know, you
Yes.
have to recognize, you have to be on stage, right? We can talk about that on stage, off stage kind of bit. You have to be on stage at all times because you're serving and you're
Yes.
ministering to people's souls, even if you don't mean to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I think it's just that opportunity to have all of your worlds just kind of collide, and all the
Yeah.
things that you're, gifted and talented at and passionate about, like all these things just start to be able to meet up. But it is absolutely a form of ministry. And you just said, I'm not a minister. You are not in the traditional sense, but
Right. Right.
but you really,
I don't have the license.
yeah,
But he said, your collar looks different.
yeah. And
And that's okay. And I'm okay with
okay.
that.
And it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. And so, I think sometimes as believers, we, don't understand the impact that we can have, like you said, in the marketplace, or, outside of, the church setting. And I believe that, the work is outside of the church,
Yes.
that we enter to worship and we depart to serve. And the service really happens outside of us coming together and what happens. So I just wanted to throw that in. So Kim, talk about a little bit about this as we get ready to wrap up today. So if you did nothing else this year, and this has been a year, right?
Yes, it has.
It's been like a decade in a 9-month time frame. But if you did nothing else this year, name 3 things that that would still make this year a success for you.
I would say, and I'm thinking, is it personal or is well, no, the first thing is
Yeah.
I recognize the importance of FaceTime with my kids and
Hmm.
being truly present. And I realized that I was out of alignment in terms of prioritizing them and spending time with them. So even though it's been different this year, we've had so many memories as a family. We have been kind of forced to prioritize each other. And then we actually did find a way to escape to a mini vacation home that I found. Nobody was really around, 5 people on the beach. And we spent a week just together. And that was the best vacation I probably have ever been on.
Oh
We
wow.
just cooked, grilled out, rode around on the golf court, laid out on the beach until it was time to put the baby, to his in the nap, and had fun. Xbox, all the stuff the kids wanted to do, we did. Fish fry, all
Yeah.
that good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have some amazing memories. So when I look back at 2020, I realize it's not so bad. There's been a lot of tragedy. It's been a
Yeah.
little chaos, a lot of chaos,
Yeah.
but we make sure we did that. The second thing is the business. I've been able to get so much done. I launched the book, People First, then Profit. I've wrapping up a certification, another certification with coaching, and I've launched a successful podcast. And that was the first 6 months of the year.
Oh
And
wow.
and I said, okay. And then the third thing, of course, is me stepping into this new level. So there's been a lot of good stuff, even
Yeah.
in the midst of the crazy that's happened in 2020. A lot of
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about People First, then Profit. I had the opportunity to get the book and read through it. 5 Principles Building This People Rich Culture, which I think is so important right now, especially with everything that's, happening in the pandemic, and, even with businesses, constantly downsizing and restructuring and realigning and reprioritizing. Just talk a little bit, quickly about why this thinking even now is still very, very important, and really a very necessary ongoing conversation that needs to be had, that we need to be having in businesses and organizations.
Yes. This, wow. The amazing thing is the fact that the timing of this, I didn't just start writing the book right when right when COVID hit our shores. It was something that was in the works for 2 years. And I
Hmm.
had already planned to release it at the beginning of a pandemic. So the timing of this is it still blows my mind. And it's so important. And I say that because the data shows us that even before COVID, about 55 or more percent of people were looking for a job at any given moment. We
Mm.
already knew that. That's global data. We already knew that at least 20% of employees didn't think that their managers cared about them at all. And that's, to me, it alludes to a toxic work environment. We
Mhm.
knew that we're spending billions of dollars in unproductivity
Mhm.
because people aren't in the right seats. We've been talking about seats, and people are not happy. And I feel as though when you're not showing up powerfully, you're not being as productive.
Oh
So that
yeah.
costs money for you. It's wasting your time because you could be
Yeah.
making more money, and it's wasting money for the company. So all that was in the air, and we've been talking a lot about this. We become mesmerized with the data from Gallup and all these companies, right? But what I recognized was that we haven't been moving the needle enough with this. We're not making a lot of movement, and some companies are starting to kind of be okay with the revolving door.
Mhm.
They're blaming the millennials. They're saying, well, they just don't want to work, or well, you just have to be okay with not being promoted. I was in line for 25 years for this manager seat, or whatever their time frame is,
Yeah.
and companies are not traditional companies are not taking ownership of improving their work cultures.
Yes.
And what I've noticed is that these new innovative companies are being deliberate strategically
Yes.
about shifting the culture because they recognize that this is a business advantage. It's not just about being benevolent, but it is a strategic advantage. It's a competitive advantage. So what's happening with this pandemic? This is why it's important now. And this is what a lot of companies are doing wrong. I understand layoffs. I understand furloughs. Business is business, and I get that part. I get those things will happen. I've been in the game a long time. I understand those things will happen. However, how you communicate with your people, how you engage them, how
Mhm.
you um, uh, show empathy when it has nothing to do with the bottom line dollars, but
Yeah.
it's your culture. If you don't show up for your people now when they need you the most, they may not be jumping ship now, but I promise you, you will see the impact of this, and people starting to, because more jobs are opening up and people are leaving. You are going to see the impact of this, and you may not be able to recover fully for years to come. So what companies, how they show up for their people now during the pandemic will have a ripple effect for years, and
Yeah.
it will hurt them. And no company is indispensable. No company is. If you think about the Fortune 500 list today versus, 50 years ago,
Mhm.
they're different names, right? They
Yeah.
cycled off. Why have they cycled off? Are you able to keep up with what's happening? I think about I heard that Netflix they're promoting kind of this bottomless, like the bottomless chips at Chili's. If you have Chili's near you, they're promoting this bottomless PTO, or paid time off,
Mm.
just to put it out there. And I was asked on a call a few days ago for a women's entrepreneurship call whether I thought that was a good strategy, and I said, well, every industry is different. However, I think it's fascinating because it shows me that they value their people, and
Mhm.
they figured out what their people need. I don't believe most people won't take full advantage of that. It's knowing that I don't have to be afraid of my being viewed as unproductive or not committed
Yes.
because I have a sick child, right?
Yes.
It's just putting it out there. We want you to work hard, but here's an endless bank if you need it. Just let's make sure that we're still a team, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it's those companies like Netflix, it's companies like Apple, really Amazon, and they have a tough culture, but they have a fascinating model. Google, there's so many innovative companies who are also considered disruptors that are prioritizing people
Yes.
as their number one asset, not just in words, but in their action and their
Yeah.
decisions.
And I think that's the difference maker.
Yeah,
So often you hear about, like you talked about, these toxic cultures. And
right.
I think it is, I don't even know the word to describe it, the thinking to think that you're going to, you know, this thinking where customers come first. And the reality is, if you put your people first, and if you spend the time, the energy, the effort in building capacity in your people, that customers being taken care of is a byproduct of that. And so I think that some companies are still a little backwards about that. And so there
Yes.
is that revolving door of, we're going to get someone in here that can, you didn't, so we'll go get someone. But it's just a the focus is off. I work in schools. And so a lot of times at the end of the day, they want student achievement through the roof. All students want, all schools want their students achieving at high levels. And I often say that only comes through building capacity in teachers, because teachers touch kids all day long. And
Yep.
so we want to spend money on programs and e-learning platforms and books and stuff. Like, you want to spend resources on stuff, and I'm telling you, you don't need stuff. You need to build capacity in your people.
That's it.
And the stuff is a byproduct. The stuff is a resource, right? And so we encounter that even in the educational sector. So it's interesting, to read through the book and then to hear you really talk about that. But it's people first, and I didn't always know that. I've learned that, and I've grown to see, hey, it's about the people. And so when you make building the people the focus, the bottom line, all that stuff that we put first, right?
Right.
Those things are a byproduct of building people.
Yeah.
So Kim, talk a little bit about. I know you're offering a free download and some freebies for those on the broadcast today. So talk a little bit about where they can find it and what's there.
Yes. So I think it's so important that when you're grabbing a book like this, even though there's, to me an easy read, it's a great read. It's nice to have tools to help you along the way. So I have free downloadable resources. So they're digital resources right on the website. You can head over to kimasmith.com and grab the resources. Just two examples. Actually, there are four different downloads that you can access. I have combo cards, so that will facilitate team dialogue that you just download there. I
Cool.
have a team assessment. And again, this is team, when you think of people first, that you can do this in your house. You
Yes.
can really translate these principles into any setting where you're working with a group of people. So combo cards, a team assessment, an action plan, and also the people for a scorecard. All those four downloads are available out there. You can also sign up for the free digital, I guess, introduction of the book is on the website. So again, head over to kimasmith.com, and we'd love to support your journey.
Oh my God. Kim, this has been great today, being here in this space with you. As we wrap up and close up today, just give a few tips for those that may find themselves just at an impasse, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally. Just what are some tips that you would give as we close out today?
Absolutely. I give this often, these few words, and my mother said this to us years, for years and years. And all of my cousins know this: stay focused, link up, pursue, conquer. Four words or four phrases: stay focused, link up, pursue, conquer. Stay focused, get clear, quiet. Embrace
Mhm.
the quiet time. Get clear and quiet. I know you teach about clarity, so they need you. Get
Yeah.
clear on what your next step is. Link up, be conscious, and be on alert of who is connected to your next level. Pursue, move, show movement, right? And then conquer. Be set on a pathway that you can accomplish those goals, and be deliberate about it. So I've lived by that literally since I was a young girl, and that has never steered me wrong.
Oh, wow.
Never.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
it has been great. I'm so glad that you were here with us today for Propel. So for those of you that are still on with us, go over to kimasmith.com. The introduction to the book, People First, Then Profit, and some of the other freebies that she's offering and some other resources there are there. So head over now, kimasmith.com. And then also, there's a free gift for you, 6 power keys for life transformation at ineedthekeys.com. So just for being in this space with us today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, I've got a free gift for you to really just kind of begin that conversation around what is transformation, and then what are some of those keys or key principles that are needed for really really taking that on. And what does that look like? There are 6 keys, guys. You can't use 6 keys at one time. You only need one key to get in the door. So go through it, filter through it, pick a key, examine a key, explore a key. Once again, it's a tool, it's a resource. And I believe that you'll find value with it. So head over to ineedthekeys.com as well. So Kim Smith, thank you so much. It was so great
Thank
catching up with
you.
you. I've got to get out to South Carolina
Yes.
to see you and to hang out, and I don't know, maybe hang out, head over to Hilton Head, or
We
uh,
can head there together.
head out to Hilton Head soon, and hang out and talk leadership and love and brands and babies and business and all of that good
Yes.
stuff. So thanks guys for tuning in today to Propel. Have a great Saturday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the other side.